Thank you for joining us today for AspenTech CRM's presentation of what's new in Zoho CRM, our spring 2023 recap. For anyone who's not familiar, let me just do a brief introduction here. I'm Marshall Knapp, president here at AspenTech CRM. I've personally been working in the CRM field since 1999. I've been a Zoho certified consultant since 2014. Our company, we've been in CRM and related fields since 1994. We've got clients throughout North America, even a few global clients, and they're in virtually all imaginable industries. We're based in Novi, Michigan, which for any of you who are not familiar, we're in Southeast Michigan, about halfway between Detroit and Ann Arbor. We've got a team here of 8 full-time US-based consultants, trainers, developers, and support staff to help you get the most out of Zoho. So our agenda today, of course, we're going to cover new Zoho CRM features and functionality. The time frame for these new features is from March through May. We're obviously sitting here in mid-June now. It's taken a couple of weeks to put this presentation and some of these demo components together here, so we had to cut that off at a certain point. But you can certainly expect another one of these coming up here in a few months, probably early fall, covering everything that came out over the summer here. So we'll go through those new Zoho CRM features and functionality. We'll do that in a presentation format like this. Then we'll get into a live demo. We'll be highlighting some select features from the list of overall ones. Some demo better than others. Some are going to be more exciting to you guys than others. So we're going to try to hit some of the highlights there with the live demo. And then there'll certainly be time for questions as well. As we go through the session today, certainly feel free to post questions along the way as well. Down at the bottom of your Zoho meeting or Zoho webinar control panel there, you'll see a little question mark icon. That'll get you over to the Q&A area where you can post questions. I wanted to make a quick note about some of the features that we're going to be covering here today. Not all of the new features and enhancements are available in all CRM editions. If you're not familiar, Zoho has everything from an Ultimate Edition down to Enterprise, Professional, Standard, as well as even a free edition of CRM. Some of these features and enhancements are also still in early access. So some of them you might have to apply for or fill out a web form just to get access to them. Any of these things, whether it's which edition something's included in, or whether or not it's in early access, or if you should have just automatic access to it already, these are the types of things we can certainly help you with. And I included a link to contact us there. You guys will get these slides afterwards, and you're welcome to reach out. And if we can help you, we'd certainly like to. Another note I wanted to make, you probably saw this from some of the emails when we went through and with the registration and us promoting this. I don't have a slide for this, but we did decide to take a couple of the features or a few of the features relating to ZIA and ChatGPT, and those are actually going to be rolled into a separate webinar. Unfortunately, we just didn't have the ability to get those in here and feel like we could still do all these other features justice as well. So it made sense to kind of split those things into a separate webinar. You'll hear from us soon on that, and look to enroll in that in the weeks ahead. So nevertheless, we've still got a lot of exciting things to share with you today. So let's go ahead and dive in here. The first new feature and enhancement that we're going to talk about are note-based workflow rules. So within the CRM, you've been able to trigger workflow rules on virtually all of the modules that you had in there, but notes was an exception to that. And now you have that ability, and you can trigger based on things like the created by or time, modified by or time, the note title, the content of the note itself, or the owner of the note. So imagine a scenario where you might want to trigger based on the content of a note where you see words in there like maybe upset or something like that, and you want to notify the account manager that a note was put in that contained a keyword like that. You could easily do things like that, or I'm sure you could think of a lot of other use cases, maybe for your own organization. Client script updates. We're going to spend a minute here. This one's a little bit complex. For some of the developers maybe out there, this might hit home right away. For some of you non-developers, I'll explain a little bit more here about what we're talking about. And I'm also going to demo some components of this too when we get into the live demo, so you'll see it better there as well. So client script is something that can run on a record while it is still in the create or edit mode. You don't necessarily have to save the record in order to trigger these things to run like you do a traditional workflow. And so a developer can write a client script that triggers on all sorts of things that are happening when a record loads, when you're typing into a certain field, different things like that. And then that allows you to do a lot more with the record before you ever even need to save it. So you can really get to a point of maybe having a more complete record, a more accurate record before letting a bunch of workflows and things like that run behind the scenes. And so client script updates have actually been, or client script has actually been out there for some time now, but some of the new features and functionality that have been introduced for client script are what we're going to go over here. So pseudo fields. Pseudo fields are fields that would be almost temporary. You could go into enter data into an actual field inside the CRM, and pseudo fields would be within a pop-up. It could be different components of that field that you need to enter in. Maybe it's something about an account number, or maybe you're entering in an account number and you need to enter in like the first three of their last name, the first two of your first name, and then you enter the 4-digit year or something like that. You could have that pop up and have these sort of temporary fields where you enter that data, and then when you click save, it will save that into the single account number field on the record. Flyouts are things that can be triggered to automatically pop out from the side of a record when a certain action happens, or even when the record loads or prior to saving it. And so something like the shipment charges that you see there, that's something that was popped up when a certain warehouse was selected, and you can see there they have the ability to choose from that warehouse if they'd like to, or they can choose from some of the suggested cheaper warehouses. So that is a flyout combined with a widget that is allowing you to do that sort of thing. Dynamic lookup filters. We're starting to get more and more capabilities around lookup fields, and the CRM has some other capabilities here too that we'll get into a little bit later. But in particular with client script updates, we can do dynamic lookup filters where you can take a value from the existing record and use that as part of a lookup filter. You could use the current date time and use that as part of a lookup filter to say something must be, greater than or equal to or less than, different things like that. You could use the logged in user as a filter. Maybe you want to pull in records that are this user also owns and you want to associate with the current record. You could use logged in user as a dynamic lookup filter. And this also applies to multi-select lookup fields too, so that's kind of nice. You can invoke widgets now through client script. So something like that delivery error alert. So we picked a certain warehouse, it doesn't like that for whatever reason, the widget has an issue with it. This pops up and gives us some ability to choose some other options and then proceed through the widget there to do what we need to do. You can also do third-party callouts. I'll show you this when we do the demo as well, but this can integrate with other third-party applications, whether it's an ERP system or a file storage tool, things like that, to allow you to integrate almost like a lookup field, but via a completely other tool. So you're not looking up within Zoho CRM or even necessarily another Zoho tool. You could be looking into a completely different system as long as it has the API to do so. And you could use that then as something like a pick list for a Zoho CRM record. And then there's also the ability now to trigger with Ontype. And that means basically that as someone's typing in a field, you can do validation or verification. And if there's any issues, you can pop up something and let them know, different things like that as they're actually typing. Revamped Zoho Sheet View. This is a powerful tool that I'm not sure a lot of users either know about or utilize. I think those that do use it a lot, but I think it's a fairly underutilized tool. And probably in the past, there were probably a couple of good reasons to stay away from it. It did have some pitfalls to look out for that could lead to some inconsistencies with data. But Zoho listened to a lot of the feedback there and has really made a lot of nice updates here that make this a much more productive tool for us now. So any kind of read-only or system fields that exist within Zoho Sheet View are now protected and they're locked from editing. It respects any CRM record editing permissions that you have. So if a record is read-only to you in CRM, then that record is going to be read-only to you in Sheet View as well. Pick lists, dates, and checkboxes, you can actually see those over in the image there that's included. Those actually appear as native field types within Sheet View now. So you can't choose the wrong value or input the wrong format or different things like that. It enforces that type of thing. These also support now unique and required fields, while also enforcing maximum character lengths and other field properties. Any of the workflow automations that you have set up for your records are going to be triggered from changes that are made via Sheet View. The edits made here are also going to appear in your timeline and the audit log. And any kind of error messages will appear as necessary. So, you know, if you don't fill in a required field, or if you try to type something in that's too long for the field length, different things like that, you'll get a message just the same as you would if you were in Zoho CRM editing a record normally. Some nice updates there to Zoho Sheet View. Zoho has also recently introduced a CPQ tool within Zoho CRM. So CPQ stands for Configure, Price, Quote. You've always had the ability to do quotes, sales orders, invoices, and so on inside of Zoho. And we've had the ability to do some custom automation scripting behind the scenes. But now Zoho is bringing a lot of automation to the forefront here for anyone who might be a CRM administrator to manage a lot of nice components to a typical CPQ system. I won't pretend like this is an extremely advanced CPQ system, but as customizable as Zoho is, and with what they're starting to give us access to here, I do think there's an awful lot you could do with this. So the product configurator. Based on existing products that are already on the quote or other potential factors around the quote, other criteria, the product configurator can automatically add or suggest other products. So if you have a product that is required to always be sold with something, I don't know, you're selling a TV and you're required to sell a stand with that, you know, you could choose the TV and it would automatically add the stand. Or maybe the stand is optional. It could suggest maybe 2 or 3 different options then that you could choose from, and you could choose one, or you don't necessarily have to. And it makes it extremely easy then to add those new products or additional products to the quote. The configurator can also make field updates to the quoted items. So if you want to, based on a value in one particular item, update another item within the quote, you could do that. So, you know, potentially adding that stand, you could indicate that you added that stand because it was linked to the other thing, via the TV. You can also remove products via rules. So if something happens and you end up removing a product, maybe that was linked with something else, then of course you can remove that product as well. There's also price rules. So there's always been price books in Zoho, and those haven't gone away. But now you can create price rules that are more criteria based. So if this, then that. So if this total for the quote is greater than $1,000, then apply a 5% discount across the board. You can do things like that. Another example might be using this for tax calculations. Maybe taxes apply differently to different products, or if you want to start doing things based on the location, geography of the individual that you're sending to, of course, that's a piece of criteria that might be part of the quote. then of course you could drive tax calculations off of that sort of thing. Another nice addition is the Lookup Filter. Lookup Filter is a new property that's part of the Lookup fields. So when you're in the modules, the fields and layouts area there, you'll have access to this. It allows you to specify criteria for a lookup field. When a user is going to connect a record via this lookup field, that criteria is automatically going to be applied, and those records then are going to be filtered based on that criteria. So in the example on the screen here, it's showing that when you're going to select from accounts, it's filtering based on a field called business active is selected. So that's a checkbox field if you're not aware of the filtering criteria there. But business active is selected is a piece of criteria that they've applied here so that you can only select active accounts when you go to access this lookup field. You might have a field like preferred vendor or something like that. And when you go to look up and select a record within there, you want it then to narrow down the list of possibilities to maybe just vendors, or maybe you have a couple of criteria, like it's a vendor and then it's also at the preferred level or something like that. You can easily add multiple pieces there as well. And then when you're editing a record, manually editing a record and inputting some data into a lookup field, there's also an option where you can specify that you want this to validate that lookup filter for any new data that's added there as well. So even if you don't use the lookup itself to find the record that you're choosing, it can still validate that the record you're inputting meets the criteria. There's a locking option for records now. This is nice because you can keep records safe from being edited or even potentially deleted once they reach a certain point within your processes or for any other factor really that you decide on. There's automatic locking rules. So if you do have some process-driven things, or if they get to a certain stage in a process and it makes sense to lock the record, then you can do so. You can also manually lock a record if needed. When you manually lock a record, you can also specify a lock reason if you want to, so other people will know why that record is locked. And these are going to be security profile based. So that means that you're not necessarily locking and unlocking records based on for individual users. You're giving security profiles or user profiles access to the record being locked or unlocked. So you just want to think about how you're implementing that and make sure that you've got your security profiles in a good spot there. Some updates in user management. So this is relatively minor, but very handy. When you have a team of users and they primarily only collaborate or coordinate with one another, it may be helpful to limit the users that other people see to just those that are sort of on their same level or that are a subordinate to them. And so, when you're selecting something like an owner or any other kind of user lookup field that you might use for assigning or sharing records, this is where that's going to apply. And you can either list all of the users in the CRM or you can list just the subordinates only. So you have those choices now. In addition, where you have given a user the ability to manage other users, so the ability to go in and change their security profiles and change their roles and different things like that. This is something where you can also limit this to just their subordinates so that they can't manage users that kind of fall outside their purview, which makes a lot of sense. So again, relatively minor, but also impactful improvements here that Zoho has made for us. Global sets for pick lists. So this has been something that we've been asking for. I know a lot of our clients have been asking for a long time. When you have multiple fields in Zoho that need to use the same set of pick list values, you've always had to define those separately. So go into one field, add the pick list values there, go into the next one, add the values there, go into the one after that, add the values there. So for something like industry or lead source or countries, different things like that, this becomes a pretty tedious process maintaining these pick lists across these various modules. And they could exist easily in a handful of modules, from leads to contacts, accounts, deals, quotes, sales orders, invoices, things like that. A lot have overlap in these fields, and so it's a lot to potentially maintain. So now you have the ability to create global sets. You still have the ability to create an individual pick list for a field, but with a global set, now you can choose from these sets that can now be used across multiple fields and across multiple modules. So one single pick list to update, and then use that across multiple fields and multiple modules. There's also been some nice improvements to templates. So for a while now, we've had the ability to associate subforms in traditional mail merge Zoho writer templates, but now they've introduced that same ability within both email templates and inventory templates. We also have the ability to save a template as a draft, so it's not something that is going to be available out there for users to utilize if it's not quite ready yet. And the email templates are also now responsive for any viewers who are on mobile devices and who are looking at those emails. There's been some improvements to user fields as well. So when you associate a user to a record, that's something that has always given them access to that record. When you do that through a user lookup, it's always provided that user access to that record. Now you have the ability to control what level of access is provided as a default. So from full access to read write to then read only. You set that as a default, and that'll automatically get applied moving forward when users get access to these new records. There have been some additional admin tools to the CRM as well. So in the past, we had the ability to clean up a number of items like templates, users, things like that. Now they're adding additional items here for roles, profiles, and web forms. And what this tool does, the admin tools, if you're not familiar, it allows you to go in here and filter for some unused items. And then it gives you certain things like statistics about utilization and that sort of thing. And then you can you can in bulk, delete any number of these from one to any selected number that you choose from. So it makes it really easy to clean up old unused items within the CRM. Also in that admin area, another enhancement is function analytics. This is a brand new area, and if you use custom functions in Zoho, I think this is something that's going to be very impactful for you. I know we've started using it quite a bit. What this does is it gives you an overview of all the functions in your system that have run or executed over the last 30 days. You can see an overview of charts, graphs, different statistics like that. But you can also drill down into very detailed log information. You can view individual failures, and then from there, you can decide if you want to rerun one of those, or you can choose several to rerun all at once. You can also export that information if you want to do any further analysis, reporting, things like that. Because again, you're only keeping the 30 days here. Obviously, there's a lot of functions that run in some systems, so you can potentially export that if you want to kind of keep an ongoing log or do some additional analysis there. There's also now a tighter integration with Zoho CRM and Zoho Data Prep. If you're not familiar with Data Prep is a relatively new product that allows you to bring in data. It looks for inconsistencies in that data. It can do things like address parsing. It can compare data between data sets. There's a lot of capabilities there. And what you can now do is export bad data from Zoho CRM into Data Prep. You can clean that data up over in Data Prep. And then you can take all that clean data that you have back from Data Prep into Zoho CRM. So it's a pretty powerful method of cleansing the data that you have in your CRM. This is not necessarily a deduplication tool. It's more about creating consistency within the data, say within certain fields that you have on these records. There's also now Notebook for Zoho CRM, another integration. So if you're not familiar, there's Zoho Notebook out there, kind of like an Evernote type of tool if you are familiar with something like that. Now you can get quick access to Notebook from CRM. You can create notes from records, so it actually links these items to the record that you're on. You can create notes, you can add to-dos, you can attach files and photos, you can record audio, and all of this is stored in Zoho Notebook, but it's all related to this contact, and then you can view those notes as a related list inside Zoho CRM. So if you really like Zoho Notebook and some of the capabilities that you can do there, checklists, things like that, this might be something you consider integrating with Zoho CRM. And there's also a new voice recording field in the calls module. More and more clients are starting to integrate voice over IP VoIP systems with Zoho CRM. If you attended our Unified Communications webinar a number of weeks back, you heard about a lot of the various options that are out there to do that. Some of those include the ability to record your phone calls, of course, but some of those also include the ability to automatically embed a link of a recorded phone call into Zoho CRM. So in addition to that, by adding this voice recording field in the calls module, users can also manually input URLs into this new system field. And then when they go to click on that, it's automatically it understands that you're already linked with a audio file, and it gives you the obvious options to play, pause, mute, unmute, adjust the volume, and you can also copy that URL if you need to as well. So that's a relatively minor, again, addition, but a handy one there as well. And then there's a few miscellaneous improvements that we just wanted to note here. We're going to be getting into the live demo here in just a minute. But I just wanted to note a few other various improvements. So custom forecast categories, you now have the ability to create custom forecast categories, whereas it was open and won and lost in the past. You can create custom ones based on your own needs there. We're not talking about the stages. The stages you've always been able to do, but at a higher level, they were always grouped into forecast categories. Now you can create custom versions of those. And there's also been enhancements to the stage history tracking to allow you to see where a particular deal might have dropped off or what stage they moved to and from a little bit easier. So that can be helpful there as well in the deals area. There's been a couple of improvements to portals. Portal users can now be the owner of a blueprint transition. So this allows you to a little bit more easily collaborate with external parties if you're using blueprints. They can actually take the next steps necessary through the portal and keep that blueprint moving along, or keep that record moving along through the blueprint. Portals also now support wizards. So wizards have been something in CRM. I think we showed that in the last What's New webinar. So that's been out for a few months now. Wizards are a handy way of breaking a record down into smaller pieces and just making it a little bit more manageable when a user is filling out that new record. And so the ability now to add that to portals, again, as you're collaborating with external parties, just allows you to do that a little bit more easily because they can use a similar interface to what you're using internally. It's been a security update for custom record level email sharing permissions. It just gives you a little bit more control over that on a record by record basis. There's a revamped user interface for groups that makes that a little bit easier to use. There's a messaging integration now with WhatsApp. I don't know if there's many of you out there that utilize WhatsApp, but if you do, you might want to check that out. And we also have the ability now to do custom domain mapping. So instead of accessing crm.zoho.com, you have the ability to potentially access something like, crm.aspentech.com or something along those lines for your CRM. If that's something you're interested in, there's some help articles out there. Not a terribly difficult thing to do, but you do need a technical resource to help out with that. All right, I'm just going to pause here for a moment before we get into the live demo, see if there's any questions. Give me just a second here. It looks like we're doing good there. Again, just a reminder, if you do have any questions, feel free to click on that little question mark down at the bottom of your screen. Click over into the Q&A area and feel free to post as we go along here. I'll try to check in again periodically, but we should have some time at the end as well. All right, so let's get into the demonstration here. Give me just a moment. All right, we're going to start here. And again, we're not going to necessarily demonstrate all of the features and functionality that's new. That would take quite a while here. And we're also not intending for this to be training. This is kind of a high-level overview of what's available here. And if you are further interested in finding out more, you'll certainly have my contact information. I'll share that at the end of this webinar. I'll also be sending a follow-up email to all of you with the recording and the slides as well from this. All right, so let's talk about creating a workflow from a note. That's one of the new features that they recently added here. I'm going to go into the setup, and we're going to go into our workflow rules. And I'm going to create a rule, like I mentioned earlier in the presentation, based on a note. Why is that not coming up there? I'm sorry. Hang on one second here. I apologize. I might have that in my other instance here. Let's see. Workflow rules. Create rule. Well, we had early access to that, and it appears like it has gone away. So it's actually looking like it's going to be a little bit difficult to show you how that one works. I apologize. So, actually, hang on one second. Let's do this a slightly different way. Let's go here. Let's go here. Let's see if we can get access to that. There we go. We can get access to it this way. Record notes. Okay. My apologies. I was going at it the wrong way, looking at it like it was the module or a higher level module like some of the other ones that you typically see up here. So we can trigger this from the record notes right here. And we can do this when a note's added or modified, just modified or deleted, of course. So typically added or modified would be a common one here. And then, one of the things we talked about earlier is if you see maybe like a negative term, or maybe you see a really positive term, maybe in a note, maybe you want to send a notification to the account manager. Now, of course, there are probably a lot of different negative and positive terms out there. So you probably have to look for certain keywords, of course. But with the advent of some of the things that we're going to be showing in one of our upcoming webinars with ChatGPT integration and other AI-based items, finding synonyms and words that are similar to or gauging sentiment based on notes is a very real possibility without really hardly any effort from you or your users. So in the short term, it's a little bit manual finding those keywords, but in the maybe slightly beyond that short term, it should be substantially easier to find a lot more about those types of things. So we're going to set conditions here. We don't necessarily just set the conditions for the contact fields. Which notes do we want this to apply to? We want this to apply to notes matching certain conditions. We might say where the note content contains, let's stick on the positive side here. Great. So if we're saying, we're putting in a note, so-and-so did a great job. This customer is extremely happy with the great work we've done, different things like that, then maybe we want to send a notification out to somebody to let them know that we got a positive compliment like that. So then we can send an email notification from here. And then from here, it's pretty much what you would normally see in any other email notification or workflow rule that winds up in an email notification. So I'm not necessarily going to continue through all of that, but you can see how we can do that now with notes, whereas we've never had that capability before. Let's spend a little bit of time on client script updates. I know that one's a little bit complex. A little bit complex, and there's a lot going on there with the pseudo fields and the flyouts and the dynamic lookup filters, the widgets, the third-party callouts, all that stuff, right? So let me show you a couple examples of some things we've built here. So if I go into a item like this here, these memo fields or large text area fields have always been a little bit challenging to work with. And so now one of the things we have the capability to do, and this is going to be an Ontype trigger here, but we can, by just putting some text in there and popping this out, we can actually give users a much easier way to work with a field like that. Let me show you if I can grab some large text here. We'll grab a couple of paragraphs of this. And then we're going to drop that in there. Now this window is automatically expanding, larger there. This does, if I click show more, and I can kind of work with it there. And if I want to edit that, it's okay. But with a lot of text, having a pop-up like that can be very beneficial. And that pop-up, by the way, too, looks a lot like Zoho, but that's all code created by one of our developers, meant to look identical to Zoho. So as far as user interface and popping out things and giving you sort of a slightly different way of working with the records and the data, we've got a lot of capabilities there now. Another thing I'm going to show you here too. Let me create a new catering order here. So there's actually 3 things that this work drive invoice field is going to help us demonstrate. We're going to demonstrate the Ontype trigger again. We're going to demonstrate a widget, and we're going to demonstrate an external callout. And the external callout, if you recall, is what reads into another third-party system, whether it's another Zoho system or another ERP system, cloud storage, whatever it might be. It doesn't necessarily have to be Zoho. And you can get values then that appear almost like a pick list or a lookup field inside of Zoho, but from that third-party application. So we're going to use this work drive invoice field to highlight that. And so the Ontype trigger is triggered by me just starting to type like something like IN. And now it's looking up into a directory inside of work drive invoices, returning then the names of the invoices that are in there, and allowing me then to choose that invoice as the item I want to put into that field. So it's almost like you can create your own custom lookup fields into just about any web application you want. Pretty powerful. Let me show you the revamped Zoho Sheet View. We're going to go into contacts here, all contacts, and let's do Zoho Sheet View here. So let me zoom in, make this a little easier to see. A little bit too much there, sorry about that. But hopefully you can see this coming through on your end there as well. But like these columns here, column E, the company name, those are all shaded in gray. I can't do anything with those. Those are system fields that I can't do a thing with. Now, something like the company name, if I did want to do something with that, I do have company ID available to me. And let's say I wanted to align this next contact with the same company there. I could actually put in that same company ID there. And that's actually going to then put in AlphaDog here when this gets saved back to the CRM. I scroll over a little bit, we'll look at some other things. You can see like a checkbox here that was automatically added in the proper format. So if I do then check this box here, we'll see that it just checks that. In the past, this would have been things like ones and zeros or trues and false, which you'd have to sort of translate into checkboxes, which nobody wanted to do. All your pick lists, of course, are in here, so you can choose the appropriate values there. Anything that's a date field, like over here, invoice date, stuff like that, you go to edit that, it's going to force you to put in a date. You can't put in other types of formats. You can't change the formatting of this. So all of this now is leading to much better and more consistent data when somebody's using Zoho Sheet View. There was a bit of room for error in the past, and so this is much improved now. Something else, let me show you this too, actually. You can actually even add a brand new record to this. So if I wanted to, I could go in and say, let me put in Marshall, and I'm not going to put in anything there. And let's go ahead and try to save this sheet view here. So it comes back and says mandatory fields cannot be empty. So it's not letting me create that new record that I wanted to add on here because this field cannot be empty. And if had I deleted a field or a required field from another record in here, I would have gotten similar results. So I'm just go ahead and put in my name, and we'll save that now, and hopefully that all works. Yep, sheet saved successfully. You can also, if I go up here, let's close out of this. Let's export that again. Now Riley Pierce is also associated to AlphaDog. That's the one that I couldn't input it in, but I put the ID here in copied from above, and then that, like I said, would link her to that company as it did. All right. So let's take a look at the CPQ and some of the things that we have in there. We'll go to the setup and take a look at how we've got a couple of things set up within here. So under the product configurator, I created a gluten-free rule. And basically, it was that if somebody added to a quote gluten-free croissants, then it would suggest, not make mandatory or anything like that, but suggest a couple of other gluten-free items, a couple of salads. Okay. So when you create a quote with a gluten-free croissant, then it automatically suggests Caesar salads and Nicoise salads. So it can be kind of handy, and I'm sure you can imagine how you could apply rules in a lot of other ways in your own businesses. Or we also have price rules here too. We're big on croissants at the bakery here. And this is a volume-based discount for croissants. Basically, we're saying if you order either type of croissants, regular or gluten-free, and your quote grand total is greater than or equal to $100, we're going to make those croissants $1 each. They're normally $1.99, but we're going to make them all $1 each. So you get some big savings there if your quote total is over $100 or $100 or more. So let's just take a quick look at how that plays out. We'll go into quotes, create a quote here. Test quote for croissants. We need to put in a company here. Let's just grab anybody. Law firm is having an event. They want some croissants. So I'm going to go in here and choose the gluten-free croissants. And let's just say they're going to have like 40 of these, okay? So not over $100, anything like that yet, but I just want to save this for the time being. Now, here's the suggestions, because this is from the gluten-free rule. If they want to add some salad and things like that too, because these are also gluten-free, then it's really simple and easy to go ahead and add that to the quoted items based on the suggestion. And then you can see there, automatically brings that in. I still have to update things like the quantity and stuff like that, but it's super easy to add that additional item there. You can also automatically input something like the description here. So like, why was this added? It was recommended as an additional gluten-free item. Now, I'm still under that $100 threshold, right? So what we're going to do here is we're going to make 2 of these salads, put us over $100. We're going to save that. And basically what it's saying now is it's made some changes to my quote automatically based on this. And you can see here the list price now for those croissants is $1. That was $1.99 before. So I save that with the latest changes. And now they've got their discount because their total was over $100 before we made that list price $1. None of this requires development or coding. This is something that I configured in about 5 minutes prior to showing you this. So I'm a little bit tech savvy, but I showed you some of the areas where I went into to edit this stuff. It's definitely something that any of your CRM administrators have access to. And I think anybody who's a little bit tech savvy could probably pretty easily create some nice rules for an organization. All right, I'm going to pop over to my other demo instance here. We've got some features available in one, some features available in another. So I just want to pop over here and show you guys some things in this area. So lookup filters. So I want to create a lookup filter, but let me just double check something that's in here. Yeah, we've got account type, perfect, and dealers, excellent. So I'm going to go in and go into my contacts module, and we're going to create a new filtered lookup field inside here. So inside the contacts module, just go with the standard layout. And we're going to do a lookup. And we're going to call this dealer. So we have contacts. They're going to be associated with their dealers, maybe where they bought their car or their lawnmower or whatever it might be. We want to filter the lookup records. We want to filter it based on oh, hang on one second. I'm on the leads module. I need to make that the accounts module. And this is going to be called customers. Filter lookup records. This is going to then be account type is dealer. Save. Done. Save and close. Okay, so if I'm on a contact now, and in the past, if I had to select a dealer, I would have gone to this lookup field, and I would have gone into here, and I would have had to search for the dealer name. But the problem would have been is that I would have been looking at all of the accounts in my system, not just the dealers themselves. And now I have the ability to have this list automatically filtered by account type to only those that are the dealers. I'm selecting a dealer. Of course, I only want to select from those that are dealers. So then you can make this really nice and easy for your users. So that's pretty handy there. Let's talk about record locking. Okay, so if I want to go into record locking here, record locking configuration. All right, we're going to go ahead and configure this. So we have the ability to, of course, do the manual locking like we were talking about. We also have the ability to set up automatic locking as well, right? And then the automatic locking is going to have rules associated with it. So we might want to say, like, for example, we don't want any of our closed won deals to be able to be edited. Okay? We want those locked. We want them, don't want them edited, don't want them deleted. So preserve closed won deals, right? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm in the leads module again here. Yeah, I'll leave this page. We need to get to deals. There we go. My apologies. We'll try not to let that happen again. Preserve closed won deals. All right, so our stage is closed won. We're going to say save. Oh, it shouldn't contain a special character. Okay, no problem. And then if we want this to lock existing records that satisfy the rule, we can. I'm not going to do that in our demo instance, but I probably would advise that in your regular production instances. Now, you have the ability here to lock records for all profiles, or you have the ability to lock records for all profiles except, and then you can specify other profiles in here. We'll say lock it for all profiles. And then you also have the ability to restrict certain actions. So what do you want to lock? You want to lock editing, deleting, tagging, communications, all sorts of different things you can choose from here. Even custom buttons that you've added to the system. So there's a lot of ways you can really restrict access here, depending on what you're looking to accomplish. You can also add some exceptions to this as well. So if there's certain things you want to add, let's say, you know what, that final amount just isn't going to be added until the very end. So we want to allow them to edit that. Okay, we'll allow that one thing. And we can save this. And now we've got that applied. Now, if I go to a deal and we take it like this one here and take this through to closed won. See that? So now you can see this record is locked. So if I try to edit this record, I don't even have those options up here. Not even available to me. I can't hover over like a field and change it. None of that, right? But I did make an exception for amount, right? So that one I can edit. Came in at 1100 instead. So those types of abilities now with record locking. I can't unlock a record when it was locked automatically. The rules have to do that. So yeah, we'd have to get it out of that stage, which I can't do as being locked. So I don't think there's any way me as a user could get this out of here. But I did want to show you the manual locking. So let me go to, yeah, one of these doesn't really matter. So I could go in here and I can choose lock right from there. That's how I manually lock a record. And then put in a reason here. So deal is on hold, need to prevent changes for now. Something like that, right? And now that record's locked. As the user who locked it, I also have the ability then to unlock it there. If I do that, unlock that record, and we're good. All right, let's take a look at the global sets. So we've set up a few of them already in here. You know, things like source, industry, state. So let's take something like industry, right? So you have all these various industries that you would utilize potentially on a new lead, certainly on an account, potentially a couple other places within the system too. And this is one place then where you can manage this global set of values. Then when you go into the modules and fields and actually start to work within a certain layout like accounts, leads, whatever it might be, right? And you have something like the industry field here. Then we have the option here to have this link to a local pick list, which is just one that's only tied to this field right here and would have to be maintained separately from anything else. Or we can change this to the global set and use the global set for industry, which will then take that master list and apply that here. Now, what we're seeing here, it wants us to associate the previous values with new values. There is a sort of mapping that has to take place to transition if you're going to make a change like this to an existing field. Of course, the easiest way is to start out like this from the beginning with a field, but with this being a new feature, you haven't always had the luxury of doing that. So for anything you're going to convert, you just have to look at the mapping here and make that happen. So you just choose the new values over here, like so, and go on, continue through this, hit done, and you'll be all set and good to go. So that's definitely a handy new feature there as well. And then also wanted to spend a little bit of time showing you the new templates area here. So get out of modules and let's get into our templates. So this is primarily email and inventory templates. I'll show you this in the email area, but it really applies to both. Let's create a new template here. We're going to base this on the contacts module. And we're just going to start with a plain text email template here. And I'm just going to pull up my CRM in another window here for a moment to confirm what related module we're going to pull in here. So we're going to do, actually, maybe we're not going to do contacts. Maybe we're going to start with leads here. Let me just double check that. No, I want to do I want to bring catering orders in. So, you know what? That's because we're in this other demo instance. Okay, no worries here. We're going to bring in open activities. That'll work just fine. So leads and open activities. So hi, and then we're going to do first name here. Thank you for contacting us. We're looking forward to our upcoming meetings. Please see below for more details and let us know if you have a conflict. Okay, so now we have the ability within here to bring in tables, okay? We bring in a table here, and I'm sorry, hang on one second. I don't see the exact option we need there from that. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's enabled here. I'm sorry, hang on one second. My apologies. Just give me one moment here and I'll be able to show you this. Let me check my other instance here. My apologies. Sorry, I'm not seeing it there either. I thought we had it loaded up in one of these, but I'm just not seeing it at the moment. So I apologize for that. I will try to get you guys a little bit more insight into how that feature works. See if I can't record or add to this a little bit of a demo on that. But for now, I did want to move on. Unfortunately, that was the last feature that I did have in the demo portion there. Not a great way to end that. I apologize. But I did want to just circle back here and see if anybody had any questions. We are close to wrapping up. It is the top of the hour. I think I had this one scheduled to go a little bit past to about a quarter after, but I do understand if anybody needs to drop off. I did want to say thank you to everyone for jumping on. If there is anybody that does need to leave at the moment, I appreciate your time. Hopefully you found this valuable. You will be receiving a follow-up email with the slides, the recording, and if there's anything at all that you need, certainly don't hesitate to reach out to us. Let us know if there's anything we can do to help you get access to any of these new features or new functionality, take more advantage of it, or if there's anything else you need Zoho related. That's what we're here for. So don't hesitate to reach out. And again, appreciate your time. If you do need to run, I'm going to circle back and just see if there's any open questions that we might need to address here. So thank you, everyone, again. Stick around if you have a little bit of time for any of the open questions. All right. So one of the questions is, are all the features available now? So some of them are in early access. So you may have to fill out a web form to get access to some of these. We can guide you if you're interested in something and you don't see it inside your CRM today. Some of them are also only available in certain editions of the CRM. So there's a free level of CRM. I don't know that any of you are on that, but then there's standard, professional, enterprise, and ultimate. And different features are potentially available in different editions. And one thing actually that also applies to some of these features is there's a certain number of records that you might need to have in a system. For example, some of the new AI features, I guess those will be coming out in the next webinar. We'll talk more about those. But some features require you to have a certain number of users, a certain number of records, things like that too. I don't know about any of the ones we covered today. That's why I didn't mention it earlier, but that is also something you might run into. In sheet views, can you see the tooltips that you've configured in the CRM? That's a good question. I don't actually know if that is something we can do. Let me take a quick look. Let's cancel that. Yep, that was fell flat on its face there, but that's all right. Let's go into here and let's add a tooltip. I don't know if we have any tooltips in here yet. So all right, we're going to go to title here, edit properties, show tooltip. This is their job title. Some people confuse title with like Mr., Mrs., stuff like that. So we're going to specify this is their job title. And let's make sure we have that column in our list here. I don't know if we do by default. So we're going to go into manage columns here. Title. There it is. Save that. All right, and now let's try Zoho Sheet View. All right, scroll over. So there's title. Now it gives you the data validation pop up, but yeah, it doesn't give you the tooltip. It doesn't look like. Double click in it. No, I don't see that. That's a nice feature suggestion, though. We'll definitely post some feedback like that. All right. Any other questions out there? Let's see. Can I use the notes trigger to create an activity for follow-up? and use a template for that activity. So yeah, I don't see why not. Now, when you're talking about a template to create the activity, yeah, that's going to be an action as a result of that. But yeah, let's just take a quick look through this. So if we go into our workflow rules here, go to create a rule. It's going to be based off of contacts. Test note rule to execute this based on record notes. So we'll say note added or modified. I'm sure it'll have some kind of criteria, but we don't necessarily have to get into that now. But yeah, we could easily add a task, meeting, or schedule a call from that. When you go in to do one of these, if you're not familiar, it has sort of a built-in template capability within here to create these in a consistent fashion relative to when it's getting triggered. Hope that helps. Any other questions? I can stick around for a couple more minutes if anybody does have any questions that come to them here. If you do need to run, certainly understand. But I will be happy to stick around here, see if anything pops up the next minute or two. Just a reminder, we're here to help. If you have any questions about any of these new features, functionality, certainly don't hesitate to reach out. We can help point you in the right direction if you're looking to do some of these things on your own. We also have the capabilities internally here on our team to do these things for you. If you don't have the time or the abilities, or for whatever reason, you just need an extra hand. Doesn't look like any, oh, hang on one second here. We do have a couple more questions. I was just going to say it doesn't look like we had any more, but we do have some. Can I create a workflow for a field in an account? Or sorry, can I create a workflow here? A field in an account does not get updated for X time that triggers an email to a contact in that. Yeah, that's definitely something you could do. It's not anything that's new from what has been added here in the last few months, but yeah. So if you wanted to create a workflow, you would probably need to. We have to define what you mean by an account being updated, right? So what defines an update to an account? Is it anything touching the account? Is it actual fields being updated on the account? Stuff like that. And as long as we can monitor for that sort of thing, then we can trigger workflows off of the lack of activity. We might need to write a custom function to write a date, the last time something like that happened. But it's certainly possible to make all that happen. And as it pertains to a particular contact within that account and emailing them, you can certainly do that too. We just need something to define how we find the right contact. So do we have something like a pick list that identifies them as the decision maker? And if so, we can always send that email to the decision maker as an example. Whatever contact is identified as such. All right. Yeah, happy to stick around if there's any additional questions. Feel free to keep them coming. Good stuff, guys. Thank you. Again, if you need any assistance, please don't hesitate to reach out. That's what we're here for. That can be just as simple as giving you a nudge in the right direction to full-blown hands-on assistance, whatever's right for you. All right. I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up for today. Thank you, everyone. Hope to see you on another webinar soon. Have a great afternoon. Bye now.